All right, welcome everyone to our second episode of our Actionable Insights podcast. This is a mini series that we're doing as part of the Global Leadership Exchange to connect with leaders across Canada who are going to be joining us in June for the Leadership Exchange and sharing some of their insights and thinking. So today I have with me Drayton. So, Drayton, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, Shauna. Really nice to have this conversation. Thank you again for having me. So my name is Drayton. I am a young entrepreneur, young innovator here in Canada. Been in the space for a little while, so kind of started my journey in university, and just kept going from there. I'm really excited to be in the space. I love working in different sectors. I've done some good work in the mental health space, which is where we met. So it's really, really cool to see these things coming together. And obviously, really excited about GLE and all the good things that are coming ahead.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today, Drayton. And you talked a little bit about the GLE, and I'm really excited because this year you are actually hosting a match, which are sort of like innovative labs, workshops where people from around the world are going to come join us in Canada to do a bit of a deep dive into a certain area within mental health, substance use health, or disability. So tell me a little bit about the match you're hosting and why you chose the topic you did and why you think it's important.
Yeah, first, I'm really excited about the match we're hosting because in our initial conversations, when I got involved with like the committee and things like that, I was kind of hearing the different ideas, all of these things that were going around, and I was really, really happy, I guess, to hear that there wasn't any topics related to like youth or anything in that sphere. So I was like, I definitely want to host a match around that, and I think hosting that in Ottawa just has more weight to it because of the fact that obviously like it's the capital. You have all the decision makers and all of these the potential for change here in Ottawa. So I was really excited to be hosting that. So it's going to be a youth kind of match where we're going to focus on different topics, whether it's technology, whether it's different solutions, different things that youth see in and kind of their perspective on the different mental health solutions, but also mental health issues and how they're being dealt with at the moment. So it's really going to be about creating that conversation, hearing what people from the international space are thinking, how they perceive it. And I think that's the part that excites me the most is the fact that like we're going to be able to hear from international folks and what they think and also show them what we have going on here as well. So we hope to bring in some key players in the space here in Ottawa and just build that conversation where we can make that connection between what the international space is doing and what we're doing and seeing if there's areas of improvements or areas of collaboration. So very, very excited about that match. I think it's the best one.
I'm pretty excited about that match too, I have to admit. So, and I want to pick up on a few things that you talked about. You talked about the potential for change. And I think that's so exciting, especially when we have all that energy of international delegates coming together and we have Canadian leadership from across the country being there. And you also talked about kind of learning from one another. And a big piece of what GLE tries to do is bring leaders together, and leaders can be diversity, right? Like diverse leaders that may be at different stages of their career or they're thinking about something, and build a community. So can you tell me a little bit about what you think might be some of the priorities for Canada that we want to share, especially maybe from that youth perspective, because that's the match you're hosting with international delegates, and what we're hoping we might be able to learn from them around that topic.
Yeah, it's a very interesting time to be hosting this one in Canada, but also in this like in the current like economic situation, because of the fact that Canada is, I would say they're starting to open up more to the world in terms of like broadening our partnerships, trying to find different ways to collaborate with different countries on different elements. So doing this now, I think, is actually really, really good in terms of the type of relationships that are going to be built. So priorities here, I think, one would be to like build that space where we can have that conversation, and have that shared experience, share different mechanisms, new ways that we're doing things, so that we can find a way forward. And I know, in Canada, we're relatively welcoming people, and we're very much like open to these conversations. So I think the big priority will be obviously technology. How do we move on with that, and how it's a big part of our lives now. I think a lot of matches are going to touch on that. A lot of the conversation is going to be around technology. What do we do with it? Um, how do we move forward, right? Because everyone is kind of trying to navigate this world of artificial intelligence, of fake news, a lot of things that are kind of popping around. And I think I'm really curious to hear what the international folks have to say, especially from a youth perspective, the kind of impact that they're seeing, whether it's positive or negative. But I definitely think that's going to be the number one priority. It's definitely going to be a big priority for our match, and trying to see how, what kind of impact this is having. What are some ways we can build more of a positive impact with this kind of technology that's coming around. Yeah.
I love hearing you talk about technology and also kind of the content of technology too, right? When you talk about misinformation or one thing that is it's making me think about is just the saturation that we have, especially think a lot about youth right now, just so much, and understanding what is going to work and when, kind of fit to purpose, right, is such an interesting conversation right now. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you folks do with that conversation. And I know there's other matches that are also going to be not necessarily focused on digital AI or tech, but it's going to be part of the conversation that they have to have in relation to their topic because it's just so pervasive. And I'm really excited as well to hear what they're doing around the world. We're seeing a lot of different approaches in terms of trying to work with young people, and figure out ways forward. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see what folks are doing, what kind of frameworks, what kind of policies, and what kind of solutions they're finding. So that's sort of something that's coming to mind for me based on what you're saying. And then it also is making me think a little bit about when we're together, a big part of the GLE or Global Leadership Exchange, but also the topic for this year's Leadership Exchange is ideas to action. So I'd love to hear from you what this theme means to you, and what you hope folks will get from that theme, and why that theme is important right now.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that theme. I think when it was first pitched, I was like, yes, that's definitely the one we have to go with, because I think there's a lot of great ideas out there in the world, and everyone has great ideas, but it's that secondary piece of turning that into action and things that you can actually do and like move forward with. That's really important. I think why it's relevant now is with the movement of technology and all these things happening really fast, we're going to start seeing a lot of things that are kind of like you can turn an idea into something very, very quickly now, right? Whatever you think overnight, you can probably build it the next day. So that kind of time between your idea and action is shortening as time goes. There's obviously a lot of other things that are taking more time, like there's still a lot of red tape when dealing with things. But I think over time it's definitely going faster and faster. So I think part of the conversation, we're gonna need to have is like, how do we ensure that we're getting good quality in the action piece? So it's not just an idea is here, okay, we build it, and then something is just kind of thrown out there in the world. And I think this is something that we see a lot of because of the fact that it's really easy to build. We're starting to see a lot of different digital technologies, digital ways to do these things, and it's becoming a lot. And I know that in our conversations with young people, we're definitely going to start, we're going to hear that come often, where, like you were saying, there's a saturation, whether it's through social media, through different resources, different ways to do things. The misinformation kind of gets mixed in there as well. So we're seeing a lot more of that that saturation of things and of resources and of ways, pathways. And I think this is potentially going to lead to decision paralysis, not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go, how to navigate different things. So the important piece for us as GLE, as delegates who are, focused on this work will be how can we turn, ideas into like quality action that actually has purpose and that can actually drive change, instead of just being an action. So I think there's the layer of like the importance of turning ideas into action, but there's also that secondary layer of the quality piece and how can we, actually drive purpose at the end of it. So I'm really excited for that component, and I think we're even in the planning, we're definitely finding multiple ways to do that. I know we talked about, finding ways to report on all of these things that are happening all throughout the first few days, and then trying to get, the delegates to kind of see and consume that content before the main day, all of these things. So I think we're definitely gonna find the way forward, but it's definitely a really good tagline for this year.
Awesome. Thanks, Drayton. And I love that layering of quality,
Yeah.
because we could do a lot of things, but we want to be intentional and intentional around the good impact that we hope to have and working in good ways. So that resonates with me a lot as well as a system person. So, one thing that you talked about that I'd love to touch on a little bit, and I know that youth entrepreneurialism is something you're really passionate about and have a lot of expertise in and leadership in, is that piece around mentorship. Because I think one piece for me in relation to how we decide the good things to do is learning and humble leadership and connecting with each other and thinking about mentorship. And so, can you talk to me a little bit about youth entrepreneurialism and mentorship within that and leadership within that and how that looks?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a deep passion of mine as well. There's this thing of like mentorship, or even me. This is kind of how I saw it a few years back, where like mentorship seemed like something where someone who was much older with like more wise, more years of experience could kind of like impart on you, different strategies and ways to move forward in your career. But as I kind of grew up and maneuvered my way into this youth entrepreneurship world where you kind of have to figure things out by yourself, learn things really, really quickly, trying to find ways to connect to people, learn from these experiences. I started kind of taking on this idea that we don't necessarily have to wait until like we're much older and we're accomplished and we're where we want to be to start that mentorship or like that giving back, to others in the community and things like that. So for me, I started kind of taking on this approach of I have a little bit of knowledge, I have a little bit of content and that I can give to someone. So why not, do that? Why not be that mentor for someone who is maybe a step behind me? That way, I can also learn from some of the things that they're also taking a part of. And I think this goes to the point you were mentioning about like humble leadership, right? Where you may have that experience, but there's also a lot more to learn, and there's always more to learn. So opening up that access to mentorship to other for other people, also opens you up to learning, and that idea of learning multiple things that you may have not been aware of. So for me in particular, I mentor a lot of not necessarily younger, but just people who are kind of getting into their entrepreneurial space, whether it's in social innovation, or just innovation in general. And having these conversations always fills me up because I'm learning some new things as well. Like there's new technologies that are coming up. There's new ways of doing things that these people are passionate about that then I'm learning about. And then I'm like, okay, that's very interesting. Like, how does that work? And then we end up kind of teaching each other different things. And it really just allows you um, to just keep your mind on like solutions and being open, and it keeps your mind I think, yeah, keeping your mind open is the key. Is like it allows you to take in information, to give information, and then learn from those experiences. So I think that plus humble leadership is what we should strive to build in our systems, whether it's in the mental health space, or whether it's just on the broader leadership space as well. Because I think that's how we can advance, and that's how we can build a better Canada and a better world in general.
The idea of like reciprocity in learning, I think is so on point, and how that allows us to be open-minded and learn, like lean into learning and appreciate that we can learn from everybody. Everybody has something they can teach and something that they can share. Just the strength of that, and I think how that propels us forward collective, individually and collectively, is so exciting. And that piece around reciprocity and learning is something I want to ask you a little bit more about. One of the goals that we have for the leadership exchange is that deep learning, is that people will come and they will engage in a learning space with one another and recognize that we can learn from anybody. Um, and we have something to teach ourselves as well. So can you tell me a little bit about what your vision is? Because you've been involved in the planning and thinking behind this as well. What would be your vision for the feeling of that space? How are we going to embody that feeling of learning and humble leadership in the space when we come together? What would that look like? And how can we make it happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what we're already doing that is really key is this idea of connecting international delegates or leaders who have either hosted matches before or have been in the planning for other GLEs in the past, and we're kind of connecting them to matches that are taking place locally here. I think that already in itself will allow for that conversation to be open. So when planning, we're going to be able to talk to these people and figure out, is this something that, what do you think about this? And they're going to be able to give us a perspective that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So I think that's really cool. Just really excited to talk to the person that's assigned to our match, but because I kind of looked into them and they're really cool. But that aside, I think that plus, you know, it's all about how do you create that space? How do you create that space that keeps the conversation flowing where people feel like they can give ideas and people can take those ideas, they can reformulate them, and they can stay curious in the conversation. Because I think once people are curious, then people's ideas start flowing. People aren't scared to share different things or ask different questions, or ask difficult questions. So establishing that space of curiosity and learning, I think, is going to be really, really key. And how we plan on doing that is by giving them some sort of I would say it's almost like a peek into um like Canada and the system and what we're doing and what we're working on. So that it gives them context to then use in the conversations that we're gonna have. And we hope to do the same for folks that are going to be joining locally as well, by giving the international people space to give us a context on what's going on, so that with the shared information, we can then move on to the next step of like, okay, how do we build this? Like, what are things that we like? What are things we don't like? How can we improve on this? And what are some solutions we can come up with? But also not necessarily rushing to find solutions. I think that shouldn't be the end goal right away. I think giving space to as much sharing as possible, and then I think naturally those conversations will lead to solutions. But yeah, I think that curiosity piece is definitely something we want to include, find a way to include in our match, but also as a whole, all the different matches going on and just the conversations being had all throughout the GLE.
Amazing. And I love the idea of kind of leaning on and learning from folks that have done this before and been there before. And that definitely is a beautiful thing to watch, honestly, across the matches and across folks that are going to be hosting, connecting internationally, learning, and also connecting in Canada, because we have some new hosts this year who have not been engaged in hosting a match before. There's so many kind of mini communities being created. And I think that's a really big motivator for the Global Leadership Exchange, is just trying to build connections. It's challenging to do system work. You know this, I know this. It's challenging to work in sectors that are complex, and really where we want to do a good job. I think there's so much good intention in mental health and substance use health and addiction and disability, but we need our communities to be able to do that. So my final question for you then, Drayton, is: you are a leader. You're a leader in the spaces that you occupy. You came through our work together in the mental health sector as a youth leader, and now, sort of as you said, coming into holding a lot of different types of expertise in leadership. What to you is one of the most critical characteristics of good leadership?
Yeah, and I think we've definitely already touched on this. It's definitely the reciprocity when it comes to learning, because I think great leaders are people who understand that there's always a lot to learn, and they are curious to want to learn the things that they don't know, and that will allow you to connect with people who have that knowledge and open yourself up to those conversations, which then enrich the way you think and make you a better leader at the end of the day. So, kind of keeping that gate open of connections and perspectives and different ways to see things allows you to then pour that out onto the people you're leading, the sectors you're leading, and improves on them, and then allows for people to be comfortable when it comes to giving you new ideas and giving you ways to do things, which then allows you to get better and kind of keep growing as leader. So I think that reciprocity is probably like the highlight of our conversation today. But it's really just it's amazing, having that gate open to people being able to have that openness to share ideas with you, and then taking that information and then using that and adding on to it, and overall staying curious. So that would be the trait that I think makes good leaders. I definitely see it in a lot of the people that we're working with at GLE for this match, and I'm really curious and have like excited to see how this reflects over the rest of the conference.
Incredibly said. Um, Thank you. Thank you for your reflections and for your learning and your expertise today. And also, it's always just a pleasure when you and I get a chance to connect. Anything that you'd like to share as kind of a final thought?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of people are definitely going to come into this conference with I guess with the thoughts of the times, right? And we're in a very complex, difficult time, and there's a lot going on in the world. But I think people should stay, optimistic about the future. I think there's a lot of good things that are going to happen, and there's a lot of ways for us to build those things. So I would say for anyone coming to the conference, definitely come in it with an open mind, with a lot of excitement for what we're going to build and what the future holds. Because it's going to be great conversations, and we're here to build a really, really, really beautiful future.
I couldn't agree more. And we're going to have some fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Drayton, thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in June and welcoming all of the delegates with you in Ottawa.
Likewise, likewise. Thank you.
Thank you.